Okay, so in today's little episode of class, at least where some of the classes are, we are going to be talking about the free market. Let me go back here one. So we are beginning part two. In part one, we looked at political ideologies and the concept of where left and right are, how that fits in with like a worldview of politics, and some of the two of the men really responsible for kind of the quirkiness. We also looked at the sort of middle road that the US took 100 years earlier by following the advice of a Scottish economist and philosopher named Adam Smith. So, part two of Unit 2 is what is the free market and why should we want it and how do we keep it? So, to begin with, let's look at this bubble diagram. The free market, and we're going to go clockwise around here, is a free, cooperative, and peaceful process. You cannot be forced into doing it. You are free to do what you want for work. You are free to be an investor. You can put your money where you want to. You are free to be an entrepreneur. You can start your own business. You are free to create capital formation. That means that you are free to ask others to invest in what you have as a business opportunity and use their money in exchange for shares of ownership or product or some kind of an acknowledgement of patronage. You are free to earn profits. You work for it, you get the money you make. You are free to compete. You are free to buy, own, use, and sell private property. It's your stuff. Do what you want with it. And finally, you are free to set prices. But similarly, people are free to not buy those things if they're just too expensive. So these nine things are aspects of what is meant by the free market. Okay. So when we talk about markets, the free market is a system where people who are known as consumers. So the term in the free market for a person, the technical term here is you are a consumer. You use or consume stuff. Consumers have control over what's available, the price and supply, demand, and the sort of availability of all goods and services. Now, you could rightfully ask a question of how can consumers, that's buyers, control availability? Okay, to some degree you are correct that there is this aspect of it depends on certain factors of like what materials are at hand, how easy it is to get things, but companies will stock products based on the desires of their customers. So, to some degree, the supply and availability is based on the demand. If stuff is not in high demand, it's not going to be easily available and people won't have it on hand. Now, on the flip side of this, on the far end of the spectrum, so let's go over here and we'll do a little bump. We use green for money. We have the command market. The command market is where the government is in complete control of the economy. The government sets prices, it makes stuff available, and it allows access to goods and services and restricts thereof. Now, in between these two is where the United States is. And this in between area is known as a controlled market, where there is some degree of government control. Why? Because there are going to be certain things that the government really should be involved with. You want to know when you buy a bottle of water that the water you're buying is pure, is not contaminated with parasites or any kinds of weird funguses or types of diseases or infections, that it's good, honest, clean water, what it says it is. That when you buy meat, the meat that you're buying is legitimately what it is you think it is. It's cow, it's pig, it's sheep, it's goat, it's buffalo, whatever it might be. And you have a right to know if that meat has been treated with chemicals or drugs or if it is free and natural. The United States is a controlled market. All right. So we are a controlled market, but if we really look at it, the US is a controlled market over on this area. So the US is in sort of like this sort of area of the controlled market. On the flip side, you have China and Russia, where they are sitting right on this area. They're a controlled market leaning much closer to the command side, where the US is a controlled market leaning much closer to the free market side. You'll notice there's a hyperlink up here. If you go on, like, look on the post where I put this lesson, I have attached the video that we watched about the lesson. Okay. So that is what that is. Okay. So go on to the next one. Oops. Okay. Now, hold on for a second. Okay, sorry about that. I had a little thing I had to address with Dr. B and Mrs. Sullivan. Um, so the important thing to kind of understand here, going back to like the market stuff. So the an absolute or real or true free market cannot exist. Why? Because there's some degree of government regulation that's kind of, it has to be there. As I said, you want to know that the food, the liquid, the medicine that you are purchasing and consuming and relying on for yourself, for your family, for other people is what it says it is. The government is there to protect you on that level. You want certain government services. We have to pay for those. How do we pay for them? Through taxes. What what free market really means is hands off or left alone. It's a laissez-faire approach to regulating the markets. Do as little as possible. That's really what our controlled market is. It is the government doing as little as possible. Now, as the government further creeps one way or the other, either to the left or to the right, there are going to be changes in where we are in terms of a controlled market. The more, like, for example, from say 2017 to 2021, we were much closer to this area. COVID kind of pushed us towards this way. And since 2021, we have decidedly moved more towards this way. Okay. So depending on who's in charge, the like where we are sitting is going to change. But nevertheless, ideally, you want a government that is as minimally involved as possible with as little government action as is possible. The important thing here to understand, though, is that free market economics is not politics. The free market can exist whether we are under a conservative government or a liberal government or a moderate centrist government. In fact, an absolute free market is the ultimate goal of the libertarian movement. The further left you get, the less free market there is. So the further left we go, the more we drift towards command market. The further right we go, the more we get to absolute free market. With the real danger of an absolute free market is that there is no protection for you whatsoever. The Latin phrase for that is caveat emptor, buyer beware. It's your job as the buyer and the consumer to be on top of what you're purchasing in a free market. So politics do not dictate market. What dictates market is economic choices. There are very, very liberal governments in Europe. For example, the Scandinavian countries, Sweden, Norway, Denmark, Finland, that are very, very liberal. In fact, they border on socialism in terms of like public policy, but market wise, they are more free market than America is. Because what they recognize is that the money that they have to support those liberal policies comes from a free market economy. Now, there are two great enemies of the free market. One of them is super obvious, that is Marxism. By its definition, the extreme left is a complete command economy. It is the uniting of politics and economy into one. Okay, so in that particular case, politically speaking, the absolute left cannot exist with a free market. Okay, liberal can, but the absolute left cannot. The other enemy of the free market is much more insidious and in some ways much more dangerous. That is what is known as crony capitalism. So the word crony, okay, a, a crony is your sketchy friend. And all of us have a sketchy friend. Heck, some of you might be the sketchy friend. I'm not judging you, just saying. In crony capitalism, the government is your sketchy friend. I have posted a video that explains why crony capitalism is bad. But in a very simple form, it's this: government will overpay for goods and services. Government does not base itself on competition, it bases itself on political support and political opportunity. Government contracts are not awarded to the best qualified company, the best building company, or the cheapest company. They are awarded to the company that does the most for the government, the company that pays the most money to the government in the form of like incentives or lobbying, which is simply like a fancy way of saying bribery, legal bribery. Crony capitalism looks at things like, where is the business located? Does somebody in Congress who has an important position have this business in their district or their state? If so, this is what we're going to do. Crony capitalism is so awful and in its own way works in Marxism because on the surface, it looks free market, it acts free market, it pretends it's free market. But when you look at actually how things work, it's not free market. So there is a video on why crony capitalism is bad. There's also a video on what the free market is. And there's another video on the morality of capitalism and the free market. I'd like you to watch all of them because they'll help you, I think, to understand this concept. Okay, peace and love.